Thank you, Ms. Mercado. And hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm calling this session the Board of Revision to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Ojibwe, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. With me today are Ron Merritt and Clay Purvis, and my name is Harvey Diamond. The City of Winnipeg Assessment Department is represented by Alyssa Darkanova, and our administrator is Fran Picato. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rules in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision are requested and described in each application, and we will have a discussion to those matters. And the statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony. Anyone speaking to such matters must first be sworn in. Be advised the comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered as evidence of market value by our board. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by council, is independent of it and the city administration. We make our decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues written orders that we mail to all participants as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Management Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or to classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to an application for exemption from taxation. And should a party wish to appeal, information to do so will be included with our order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following their swearing in. We'll then have the assessment testimony followed by any questions and the applicant may have, and then the testimony followed by any questions. Each side will be given an opportunity if they wish to do so. Once all evidence on the application is brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today, and the session will close after all applications have been heard. The board will deliberate in private and makes decisions. You receive the board's order by written mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will form part of a public record. And we'll be hearing all the items on the docket, being 1 to 8 today. And Ms. Picato, you can please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony at this time.
Certainly. Madam Assessor, please state your full name.
Alyssa Aderhanova.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. I guess I'll do both applicants at this point. So, Mr. Neufeld, please state your full name.
Rocky Neufeld.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Moroz, please unmute and state your full name. Please.
Jared Moroz.
Okay, thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the first item on our docket today is the property at 239 Colony Street. And Ms. Darkanova, you can proceed when you're ready.
File number 24-4302. Roll number is 1209150800. Address is 239 Colony Street. Owner is Gopher Enterprises Limited. Roll year is 2025 with the reference date of April 1st, 2023. The assessed value is $1,141,000. Classification is residential 2, liability taxable. This is an apartment. There's one building on site, 3 stories. The actual year built and effective year built is 1939. There are 29 suites and 1 outdoor parking. Continuing to page 3, we have the income value summary. So we can see that there are 21 bachelor units and 8 one-bedrooms, totaling to 29 units. The average monthly rent per unit here is $534.17. From the model generated assessment, we have the gross potential rent at $185,891. The vacancy rate is 3.6. And The effective gross income is 179,199. Expense rate at 59.89%, and our net operating income is $71,877 with a capitalization rate of 6.3%. And the estimated market value rounded is 1,141,000, with the market value per suite being $39,344.83. Continuing to page 4, we can see the rent comparables. So subject is the first column, 1939, primarily bachelors with 1 unit. And the gross floor area per unit for the subject is 661 square feet. For comparables 1 through 4, all are apartments, same as subject. They all share the same story count and building count. And the years range from 1929 to 1934. Got a mix of wood and masonry for the construction class, and the suite mix for the comparables are having a good mix with the bachelors and 1 units as well. We can see that the gross floor area per unit ranges from 670 square feet to 1,296 square feet, and that the average monthly rent per unit ranges from $666 to 1,484. For the comparable 2 is the top for the floor area and rent. And we can see that there is heat and rent included with all the comparables. Going to page 5, we have our capitalization rate evidence. The following is a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period. The purpose for showing these individual capitalization rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model-derived capitalization rates. They are not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property. The net operating income has been developed through stabilizing owner-reported income and expense information. And capitalization rates have been derived by dividing the property's net operating income by its sale price. So looking at the table, we can see that the cap rate has a range from 3.46% to 5.74% here, and that the subject's cap, which is 6.3, already falls out of that range. And I think in the effective age year in some of these, I think we have some older years as well. Seems like there is a built from 1955 for effective age, a few of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 27 Sergeant, 473 Burroughs, and 555 Corridon. So those are, I guess, some of the older effective ages for that cap rate. And going to page 6, we have more capitalization rate evidence. So looking at the city of Winnipeg in the multifamily column, we can see that within the 20th percentile and the 80th percentile ranges from 4.75% to 5.45%. And then on page 7, we have the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. Page 8 shows an aerial map for the subject, highlighting its location near the Winnipeg Art Gallery, Memorial Provincial Park, the Legislative Canada Life Center. And then we can see on the lower half the subject property outlined in the purple rectangular box. And on page 9, there is an image from Google Street View. And on pages 10 And throughout we have the mailer. So on page 10, we have the multifamily page for the mailer. And we can see that the gross potential suite income at 100% occupancy is 244,896. And then continuing on page 11, the breakdown for the 2022 mailer. So we can see here that there's a net operating income reported at $17,000 and 3. So that is a pretty low NOI, and I think that the repair and maintenance, given there being 29 units, is fairly high. And going to page 12, we can see that the 2021 mailer seems to better represent our model assessment here today, with the gross potential suite income being 242,631. And then on page 13, we can see the breakdown here, and that the net operating income was coming in at $68,227. And that the repair and maintenance here is more reasonable than what was seen in the 2022 mailer. Not too sure why I didn't see any permits pulled out for this property. Anyways, that would conclude my presentation. Thank you. I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, any questions?
Yes, I do. On page 3, was this all generated by the model?
Correct.
So is the model one of the is one of the parameters in the model age?
Correct.
So in this case, 1939 equals 6.3%. Is that how I read this?
There would be, I think, more than just the age going into the cap rate, but the cap rate for the subject is 6.3%. And yes, the effective year built and actual year built for the subject is 1939.
Right. So I'm just looking to confirm that age is one of the factors that goes into
That
the
would go into the
city's
model. Yeah, that
model.
it would affect that to some
Okay.
extent.
You made a statement that the previous year's income would better represent the subject. Now, how many years did you go back?
I have the 2 years here, and I don't quite recall going back much further.
Okay, so if I put it to you that it's never ever hit the NOI that you've stated, would you disagree?
Excuse me?
That it has never hit your NOI in its history, in its life, would you disagree?
Mr. Neufeld, she wouldn't know the answer to that if she didn't look at it. That's something that you can bring up as evidence if you want to yourself.
Well, I'm sorry about that, but the city has the mailers and these people have sent them in every year. It's part of you doing your due diligence. So maybe my question is, maybe my,
Mr. Neufeld, she said she looked at the two mailers and didn't go back farther. And that's, again, something that you can bring up in your
okay.
argument.
Well, I suppose that's the point I'm making, is that if one's going to make a statement like that, which is false, then one should have a bit more than 2 years in it. How many, so you're saying on your page 1, there's 1 parking stall?
That's what we have on record.
Okay, and under the zoning bylaw, this is RMFL, how many stalls are they required to have?
I don't have that information in my brief.
Do you research this? Are you aware of what the law says?
It is not at the top of my
Okay.
forefront at the moment, so.
Are you aware that the law requires parking stalls, bylaw requires parking stalls outside of the central business district?
I'm not familiar at this point in time with the specifics. I wouldn't feel comfortable saying anything like that under oath.
I understand that now, but isn't that a part of your valuation at parking that has the ability, first of all, to generate parking income and also to attract people who like to park their cars as tenants?
Mr. Neufeld, that would affect the rent.
What's the question?
Mr. Neufeld, that would affect the rent that was received. And this property is built 1939 before bylaws were passed, so it'll be grandfathered. And it's very close to downtown. So
you're introducing evidence on how it would impact the rental rates, and I'm not sure if you're right or you're wrong, but that's not what I think. What we're discussing now, what we're discussing is, and whether or not it's a legal non-conforming or legal conforming use. I think it's part of valuation. I'm an accredited appraiser. I'm not making flip judgments here. And I think we need to, when I go and appraise an apartment, I look to see how many parking stalls they have because it counts a lot for things. So I'm asking questions that I think are extremely pertinent to valuation. And I will continue to ask them, and I mean no disrespect.
No, and that's fine, Mr. Neufeld, but I can indicate that it's got a very, very low potential rent of $500 and something a suite, which is reflecting all those things that you're arguing about. It's already
that's a foregone. No, you can't put in that conclusion right now.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Now I forgot where I was. Oh, yes. Okay. The capitalization rates listed on page 5. Now I know it says above that it's just to demonstrate the accuracy of the model, so I'm going to just ask you questions about the accuracy of the model. Does the model consider the revenue from the change in the school tax credit?
I wouldn't be too sure.
Okay. Does the model investigate preferential financing?
I also wouldn't know.
When income is reported for this particular exercise, can you confirm that it is for a date that was prior to April 1st, 2023? Some of these date back to 2018.
Correct.
So it's always for a period before the reference year that the income is collected. Is that correct?
Yeah, on page 5, the information that we have presented here is that from before the reference date of April 1st, 2023.
Yes, so as I understand your answer is both the examples here and the subject tend to be before the reference date. Is that what you're trying to say?
Correct.
And in the calculation of the capitalization rate, was there any investigation done on these comparables as to above guideline rental rate increases that would skew the income higher?
I'm not sure, but I do know that another assessor in our office has looked and put together this table.
Well, do you understand about the above guideline rental increase, where you're not strictly stuck to rentalsman's guidelines, and you can have a larger increase than specified? If you had a sale, for example, on 203 Bertrand, which we knew had been renovated with 2019 income, would not the impact of a higher than typical rental increase have skewed that cap rate higher in the final analysis?
I'm not sure.
Okay. And in the case of the subject, did you determine whether or not they had any above guideline increases approved?
I'm not sure. Looking at the subject, I think that the 2021 mailer, and given the high repair and maintenance for the 2022 mailer at 2,675 per suite, I don't think that the model rate generated on page 3 is unreasonable. In my opinion, it seems supported.
And what was the basis? You said that the repair and maintenance costs were higher. Did you do any investigating either in your records or on your own as to the nature of these costs?
I didn't notice any permits.
Right, you mentioned that. Do you need a permit to get a repair?
It helps as an indicative for us to understand what's going on.
I'm
Sometimes
asking
people renovate over
legally,
turnover.
legally, do you need a permit to get a repair? Under what circumstances is a permit required? Do you know?
I don't know the specifics.
Okay, just one sec. Mr. Diamond threw me all off here. Um, have you ever been in this building?
I have not inspected this building.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Purvis, do you have any questions?
I don't think so, no.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, do you have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Diamond. Madam Assessor, does the city keep track in regards to looking at older apartment buildings and looking or analyzing the increase from one year to the other? Is that percentage handy, or do you know about anything like this?
I'm not too sure.
Okay, because they do on residential, when they're dealing with some of the people that come in, they say the average increase, over the last valuation is X number of dollars. So I just thought there would be a figure kicking around for the average increase for apartment buildings, especially older ones.
I wouldn't know. Sorry.
Okay. Do you feel as if there's with the lack of parking spots, do you feel as if the value should be probably lower than the average apartment building?
No, I think it's well supported given that it seems to be factored in the average monthly rent that we see here at 534.
Yeah. So looking at the 534, these units are particularly small. I note that there's 21 bachelors and there's only 8 one-bedrooms. So I guess you don't know the size of the bachelors offhand? No?
I wouldn't.
Okay. Okay, I thank you very kindly. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, and Madam Assessor, I'm looking at your page number 11, and that is actually the disclosure that was made for, I guess, the last year before the assessment, 2022.
Mhm.
And you indicated you thought that the maintenance looked high. Do you know if I see it as being $77,587? What is the usual, what is the model usually depict as reasonable per suite cost of renovations?
Typically,
Repair, I should.
reasonable repairs would typically fall between the range of 1,000 to 1,500.
Okay, and would that be and these are mostly bachelor suites, they're small. I guess the next question is, would you expect if that is the actual number? They said there's no permits, so there's not showing any capital expenditures, does it?
Not that I would be familiar with. There is, I guess on the bottom hand of the mailer on page 11, a capital cost summary indicator, but that doesn't seem to be filled out.
Right. And in the 2021 disclosure, the NOI comes pretty close to what the model has depicted.
Correct? Yep.
Okay, that's my questions. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Neufeld, you can present.
Thank you. So as we've stated on the first page, there's a boiler issue with this building, and all the piping is reverse grade. I don't know how that happens. Maybe they read the blueprints backwards when they built it, but that's been its problem over the years. And with reverse grade, what that means is you don't have gravity flow. So it's a constant issue with boiler related repairs, whether it be interior suites water damage or pipe breakage, and it's ongoing. You see the 3 years worth of income on page 1, and the variance in 2021 was, I checked into this, was not a question of having no repairs. It was just it was a billing year question where repairs were ongoing, and some of the expenses for other years were put in 20 and 22 and not attributed to 21. Really, why would the owner care which year it gets put into? He's just paying the bill. Stabilized out, we have it at 37,000, and since the assessor brought up the subject about it being a good 21 being a better example, that is just not true. It's just the way accounting was done. In 2019, the NOI was 34,000. In 2018, it was negative 36,000. In 17, it was 68,000, but that was again lap over in the billing. It averages out on those 2 years to 0. In 2016 was actually their best year at 48,000. And that is the history of this building, and that is the history that the assessment department has received and has not taken into account. So the estimate we have here of 37,000 very much represents the history of this property and what a prudent investor would look at if he were buying it. He would certainly not say, I think we're going to make 71,000 this year, when we've never done that in our life. And that's really the biggest problem with this property. As far as the cap rate is concerned, I don't think we have an issue with 6.3 or what we put on at 6.75. I think that the main issue on this one is the very poor income, and the owner has struggled with this for, well, since 1939. And I mean, the concept of investment is it's still turning a positive number, and it's not worth putting a bulldozer to and starting all over, but it is close. And you will not increase the income on this property unless you did that, but that means investing millions of dollars on reconstruction. So this is what it is, what it has been, and I've been in this building many times. I took it over in 2008, and always the same problem. I worked across the street from it for the 5 years prior, so I have 22 years of observation on this building, and this is what it is. Lots of buildings like this. I don't want to get you, it's doom and gloom and it's going to crumble tomorrow. It just doesn't make any money. So $37,000 a year is what the last 3 years have averaged out at. And if you averaged out the previous 7 years, that number drops. I don't think we're going to beat this too much to death. That's exactly what the issue is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, any questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Assessor, any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, any questions?
Mr. Merritt, you are muted.
Sorry. Mr. Newfield, you talked about the reverse gravity flow for the heating, and you're saying that the boiler is unfixable. So what happens to this property if the boiler does fail?
Well, they've replaced the boiler a number of times because it's always the instrument that's going to bear the brunt of the reverse flow. So what you have happening is water standing in the lines and not circulating properly. You compensate by that by putting a bit more pressure into the system. You put more pressure in the system, you spring leaks, and you wear your boiler out. And the fix for it is to go through, rip out every wall, and grade the pipes. So instead, what they do is they replace the boiler on an ongoing basis and fix the repair the pipes as required, and fix the plaster. That's all. That's what this building is facing. It's got a full-time work. This is a company that's got full-time work crew, and it's just on their daily to-do list. I don't know that I've asked them about going through it and redoing it all, and I think the last time they got a quote on that, they were talking about $400,000, and that was in 2015, 2016. It's just not worth it to do it.
I noticed that, yeah, Mr. Newfield, I noticed that in your evaluation of the subject property, you haven't used vacancy rate.
Yeah, we generally tend not to in the multifamily because it's incorporated in the actual cash flow. So you can see, for example, page 1, there was a higher vacancy, and then in 21, the vacancy was lower. In 22, it dropped. It's actual performance is the best measure in multifamily. I don't, I can't even think of any apartment I've ever even appraised in like outside of even appeals, like when I do it for mortgage financing. I don't think I've ever used a vacancy rate. I think we've always relied on actuals as the best determinant. If we have like 3-4 years of history like this one, well, 17 years of history, it's always good.
How was the appeal started? Was it ever appealed before?
Every year, because you know what? It falls outside the model. The model shoots it up, and we bring it in every year. They drop it down every year, and then the next cycle it goes up. There's this sort of thing. There's no permanent change the city's ever done on it. It's just a yo-yo. And I gotta tell you, it's great for my business, but not so good for the owner's business.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Newfield. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Purvis, any questions?
I think my questions or concerns related to that boiler issue were answered through Mr. Merritt's questions. Just quick summary to make sure I've got it right, Mr. Newfield. The system works and there's heat in the building. It's just that the boiler, instead of having a 50-year lifespan, ends up having like a 10-year lifspan and has to be replaced more frequently. I don't know. I'm using the hypothetical numbers there.
Yeah, and that's one of the parts of the component. The other is having to put a bit more pressure in the system and blowing leaks and repairing the plaster. Yeah.
Okay, so some of the issue can end up being that individual units will then have water damage.
Right.
Okay.
And that actually can lead to a vacancy issue if it's really bad. I remember one year they had to vacate a few units because it was a particularly cold winter, and they blew, I think, on the north side.
Oh.
That was that negative $36,000 a year of NOI.
Okay, and throughout the time that you've represented this property, it's been the same owners? Like it's been the same Gopher Enterprise?
It's been the same owners since 1939. Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. All right, those are my questions.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. We're getting some feedback there. Okay, Mr. Newfield, I'm looking at your page number 1, and I'm looking at your 2020 assessment, and you indicated it was assessed in the last period at 883,000,
Yes.
and you're now seeking 558,000. So that's considerably less than the last assessment before.
I let me just check something before I answer that question. Um, just to see what happened with that appeal. Smith, Tony. Um, hmm. Yeah, it looks like on my records that that was a recommendation that was offered, and I always pass these up to ownership, and they're reasonable people, and that's they made the call, so that's fine. But as far as a difference in the assessed value, I'm sure the board's always the first to point it out to you. We're not looking at previous years; you're looking at this year. Um, the point is we come to you with market value, and sometimes people make decisions on other than that. I think the bottom line is you just can't shy away from a $37,000 average NOI over 7 years and call it more. You'd cap it at even higher. It's not going to change the value. So and that's also presupposing that the market actually improved, and I don't think it. I know it did not improve, but we'll save that for the next hearing.
Okay, and underneath the 2020 assessment, you've got down that the 2023 assessment is $1,428,000. Where did you get that number from?
I don't know. I don't put these in. What is it?
It's not that.
I got 1141. Yes. Typo. Sorry.
Typo. It's more than a typo. You're not reversing numbers. It's a completely different number.
Well, it's
not a typo to be found.
It's a hypothetical number that I personally don't care about. I care about what is it worth.
I understand. So I'm looking at the
accuracy
of your whole. I'm looking at the accuracy of your whole filing, and I put the discrepancy. I just asked you for the explanation. I'm sure you don't just put numbers down.
No, you may be severely critical of our valuation, and I respect that. As to a number that does not impact it, such as the assessment, I think it's fair to just call it a typo and move on.
Okay, fine. That's your explanation for it. That's good. Can I ask you why, if there is such a huge, the value of this property, I guess, goes down considerably because of you call a boiler problem. Why wouldn't they have a report from an engineer that goes over the details, indicates what the problems are, and what it would cost to rectify them?
Well, I believe the answer to that, I have to go through my old records, is that I supplied that in previous years, and it made no difference to the assessment department. They ignored it and put it back on through the model. I don't know how else I can answer that. We're certainly not in the habit of hiding things that would assist in resolving this. I'm just want to take a look at my first year of this, just to see if I have that in my files.
Yeah.
And because I certainly 239. I do have the information, and I have submitted it. The reports. I can give you the exact date as soon as I can find it.
I'm just suggesting you thought it would be helpful because you're asking us to make a consideration and to drastically lower the assessed value based on one line in your 2-page brief, which basically indicates we have an unfixed boiler problem, which, I know you're giving testimony and you swore to tell the truth, and I believe you are telling the truth, but, you're not an engineer, and it would be really helpful in this case to see a report that would it be able us to establish there is a problem, what it would cost to rectify that problem, and how it would impact this building and impact the building's value?
Yeah, well, I mean, and the other side of that issue is that um, uh, how much data are we going to get into at the Board of Revision? And I'll tell you, our problem in our world is that I've been to municipal board with 2 office properties in a row, provided the same amount of information. The first chair told me I didn't give him enough. The second chair fined me because I gave him too much. And I understand your dilemma today. This is crucial information, and you should have it to look at. And what we have provided and passed to the assessor, I'm just looking for that specific date, but it would have been 2010's hearing.
Okay, well, you know what, you've provided the information you provided, and that's what we have. So I guess I thank you, and we'll go on with, you've answered my questions, I guess, so we'll go over the next property. Which is the property number 2 on the agenda, which is the property at 224 Kennedy Street. And on this one, I understand that your evidence was filed a little bit late, Mr. Neufeld?
Oh, okay. No, I think Mr. Moroz is going to just take over. I have to take a break and deal with this.
Okay.
So yeah, okay. I'll call me back. Someone will call me back when I'm ready for the next one.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Neufeld.
Thanks.
Okay, well, we'll next proceed with 224 Kennedy Street. And Ms. Assessor, you can present your brief.
File number is 24-4131. Roll number 12093673000. Address is 224 Kennedy Street and owner is 224 Kennedy Street Limited. Roll year is 2025 with the reference date April 1st, 2023. The assessed value is $1,817,000. This is residential 2 and taxable. The property description being apartment with 1 building, 3 stories, and the actual and effective year built here is 1909. There are 15 suites and 1 outdoor parking stall. On page 2, we can see that there is a sale from 2014 for $1,250,000. On page 3, we can see the suite breakdown. So there are 7 1-bedrooms and 8 2-bedrooms totaling to the 15. And the average monthly rent per unit is $1,064.33. The gross potential rent here is $191,579, with the vacancy rate being 4.3%. And the effective gross income is $183,341 with an expense rate of 49.96%. The net operating income here is $91,744. And we have a cap rate of 5.05% applied. And the estimated market value is $1,817,000, and the market value per suite here is $121,133. And this is the model derived assessment. Continuing to page 4, we can see the subject in the first column. And we have comparables 1 through 4. So looking at the comparables, we can see that they're all apartments. They all have 3 stories and 1 building on site. And that the effective year built ranges from 1909 to 1927. And the suite mix here is primarily 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom, with comparables 2 and 4 having more 2 bedrooms than 1 or more less of an even split than that of the subject. Comparable one is pretty good for being even. And we have the gross floor area per unit ranging from 999 square feet on comparable one to 1,211 square feet on comparable three. And the average monthly rent per unit is between 903 to 1,067. And we can see that the heat and rent is not included for comparables 4 and 1. So it seems that the subject is well within the range, considering the heat and rent on 1 and 4 is a no. Continuing to page 5, we can see the cap rate evidence. So the following is a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period. The purpose for showing these individual capitalization rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model-derived capitalization rates. They are not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property. Net operating income has been developed through stabilizing owner-reported income and expense information. Capitalization rates have been derived by dividing the property's net operating income by its sale price. And here we can see on the table that the range is from 3.46% cap to 5.74. On page 6, we can see in the city of Winnipeg column for multifamily between the 20th percentile and 80th percentile, a cap range of 4.75 to 5.45. Page 7 is the municipal excerpt. And page 8 shows the location, which is near Canada Life Center, near the RBC Convention Center, Winnipeg Art Gallery, Memorial Park, near downtown. And we can see the overhead of the subject enclosed in the purple box. On page 9, we can see that there is a Google Street View image from May 2021, and that on the lower half of that page, it says completely renovated apartments, and that it says 1 bedroom, 1,000, 2 bedroom, 1,200. Looking at the mailers starting on page 10, we can see that the net operating income is $44,917. And it seems that there would be some vacancy prevalent in the rental income here. I would assume, just because looking at the rental rates, the rent payable here, I tallied it up, and it seems that the GPI here would be more indicative of a figure such as 196,800 versus the rental income reported in the 22 mailer. And then continuing to page 12, we can see again that the rental income in the year 2021 is higher than that of the current 2022 mailer. And again, on page 13, just for the 2021 mailer, we can see the rent payable here, the figures as well. So I'd say that the model-derived assessment has done a pretty good job with determining the net operating income. It just seems that there seems to be some perhaps vacancy or something in which the rental income doesn't seem to reflect necessarily the rent payable. That would conclude my presentation. I'm open for questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Burrows, any questions?
Mr. Chair, my apologies. There is a preliminary issue in terms of whether or not to accept the late evidence.
We're not asking for, we're not going to present the evidence yet of the applicant. We're just now reviewing the evidence of the department. I will consider that though.
Certainly, it's just usually a preliminary issue, so we would go in camera before the presentation from the assessor.
Okay, well, yeah, we could definitely do that. Okay, so that's before that, then let's deal with that preliminary issue, and then you can ask questions.
Okay.
Ms. Darkova, I understand that there's a late filing on the evidence of the applicant. You're aware of that?
Correct.
Okay. I got to ask Mr. Morose your position on that.
I wasn't aware that it was filed late. From what I gather here, I have an email from the assessor indicating that she will file her briefs as well, same day. So I'm not sure when they were. I picked up most of these late. I was late to the party on these files, but I wasn't aware of them being late, and nothing was raised to indicate they were late with any communications with the assessor before they were submitted. And I thought we submitted them on the same day. So I'm not aware.
Okay, Ms. Picato, when exactly were they due and when were they filed?
So they were submitted, I believe 15 and 16 minutes after 4:30. So they were acknowledged and received the next day. So they are considered late once they're past 4:30. And they were received from Ayrton Neufeld. So the communication in regards to it being late would be sent to him in reply.
Okay. Okay, we're going to go into camera and we'll determine whether we'll accept the evidence, although the late filing. So will you please put both the assessor and those in the waiting room, and we'll discuss this matter and make a decision. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Morose, I can indicate that we've made a determination. We know that there is this property with a late filing, and there's a similar situation on number 4. In this case, it was filed 15 minutes late, and I understand on file number 4 was filed 16 minutes late. Again, electronic filings. There's a reason why there are requirements for filing, and that is because evidence has to be filed by a certain time to give the other party time to react to it and properly respond to it. And those dates are set in stone, and the reason why they're important is because if they're stretched, when do you end it? I know 14 minutes or 15 minutes doesn't sound like a long time, but when does it become a long time? Is it 1 day, 2 days, 3 days? So we feel that it has to actually stick to the exact time limit. In this case, though, because of the fact that it also, and that helps us to have the information before us, we're going to accept the first 2 pages of your filing, which goes up to the end of the photograph and indicates what you're requesting. And the rest of the brief, we're not going to allow to be continued. We're not going to look at it. It won't be considered as evidence. And we're only doing that because it assists us. And this is not a precedent for you, because in the future, another panel might not accept anything if it's not filed in time. It's a requirement, and we hope that this does not happen again, because we don't believe that the time limits and the requirements should in any way be altered. Okay, you can now ask questions of the assessor, Mr. Rose.
Yeah, we'll keep this as brief as possible. Just for my own understanding, on page 5, there's a reference to capitalization rates. There's a list of capitalization rates. I understand there's an explanation here, stabilizing or reporting income and expense information. My question is, why were the rates altered when a number of these sales are MLS sales? And the MLS sales include the income and expenses. so you can calculate the capitalization rate. Like for example, 727 Sergeant. Excuse me 1 minute, please. Sorry. Yeah, for example, like 727 Sergeant Avenue, the sale price is listed accurately. The income is not listed. The capitalization rate appears to be based on the asking price of the property, which was 950,000. 459 Sergeant is also an MLS. And again, the MLS listing includes the net operating income, which derive the final sale price. And the capitalization rates from MLS are much higher than the ones indicated here. Like 459 Sergeant Avenue has a 7.5% capitalization rate based on the listing. So I just don't understand why these are reported in the manner they're reported. Why were they just taken right off the MLS listing if the fact that here's where the information was obtained?
Okay, that's your question. Senator Kovalev, if you can answer that question.
Yeah, so that being said, this table has been developed by an assessor in our department, and he was able to, I guess, verify the information. And I'm not too familiar with the, I guess, MLS sale prices that were referenced.
Amos, suppose any other questions?
No, I would just say that, I don't understand the whole entire chart. And these capitalization rates are way, way lower than what would be typically used in the market when we would get the information from the market. I just don't understand why someone would manipulate the data like a 3.46 capitalization rate. That's hard for anybody to accept as reality. And it's hard to accept as reality because it doesn't exist. There's nothing at 3.46. That sale is clearly 5.7% capitalization rate. So I was just wondering why, or if there was a standard they employed to come up with these rates, but
I'm not too sure, but if you have any rebuttal information about that.
Okay, that's my only question. I just wanted to see if anybody knew where the rates came from, but I guess there's some assessor sitting somewhere that sometime in some place has created this list and will accept that their interpretation of reality.
Okay, so that's your only question, then you have no further questions?
No.
Okay. Mr. Merritt, do you have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Diamond. Madam Assessor, this building was built in 1909.
Correct.
And you're using a cap rate of 5.05.
Correct.
And on the previous one, it was built in 1939, and you're using a cap rate of 6.3. But you had said that this building was renovated. So thus, you're using the lower cap rate? Is that correct?
I don't think that would be the reason why, just because the effective year built is still 1909. I'm not sure why, but I guess 5.05 and is the model derived cap rate for the subject. And yes, the previous
yeah, so
property.
So it just gets me to wonder about cap rates in general. So, but you had specified that that there was renovations. So my next question would be for this particular property, were there permits taken out?
Not that we had seen.
Okay. Okay.
And
Okay,
that's would be like one of the reasons of why there's no effective age applied to it, because we haven't gotten around to
Okay. But
inspecting it.
but as far as you're concerned, there's been no permits taken out.
Not that we've seen.
Okay. I thank you then. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Purvis, any questions?
I have a couple. I assume you didn't inspect this property.
I have not.
Has there been an inspection recently? Is there anything on the file or?
I don't think so.
And again, the photos that you submitted, there's one from the front of the building on page 9.
Correct, from Google Street View.
Oh, that's where that's from, the completely renovated apartments
Correct.
statement there. But again, there's no permits that were pulled, so we don't know what
No,
level.
we haven't seen anything.
There's nothing online from when it was sold, or like we don't know what the interior conditions like.
No, I wasn't able to find that online.
Okay, and did you receive any explanation that you flagged it, the statement of income and expense for 2022? There's a drop in rental income and laundry income and everything from 2021. But when you go through the actual rental rates, it looks like the rents also dropped. Kind of like they're a little bit all over the place, but like it.
So for the drop, are you meaning from the current rent to the rent payable? Or just the rent payables like between the years?
But like it seems to have kind of, the suites have dropped on what the rent looks like it went down.
Mm-hmm.
Or what they're collecting anyway. Is that why you're attributing it to some vacancies? That like, is that like an averaged number typically, or is that?
So what I did for that one is only for the 2022 mailer, I took the rent payable column and I took an average of that summation, which was 1,093, and then times it by 12, just to kind of like get a general like GPI index for this one, and I got $196,800, and then I just used that for the rental income that's reported on page 10 to kind of just figure out what the vacancy rate, even though it's probably not, I don't know if it would be fair to call it a true vacancy rate, but just that's what I did. I kind of just wanted to kind of see like what's the vacancy rate kind of coming in at, and it looks like it's 31.6%. So it seems like I wouldn't know why an apartment building that's supposedly renovated from 2021 would be experiencing vacancy
Okay, so
rates like that.
the documents
So-
that are at 11, 12, 13, and 14, you basically cut and paste what was submitted to you by them. Like you didn't create these tables.
No, I just copy and pasted.
Oh.
I'm just speaking to, I guess, the difference between the rental income in the 2022
Yeah, but
mailer and then the rent payable in the page 11's rental rates.
and when they submitted these, there isn't any explanatory notes that were.
No, this is all the information that was provided.
Okay. Yeah, I've got some other questions I'll probably save for the applicant, because I mean the professional fees look really high to me. Like there's a few things in there that I've got some questions about, but I mean they could be, $15,000 a year in professional fees when the maintenance cost is, I think, what, 6,000, or caretaking 6,000. It just sort of seems, but I don't know what it includes. But you don't either. Like they didn't provide.
No, this is the information that our department has access to.
Yeah. Okay. That's all. I just wanted to confirm that was all that you had, and that you hadn't actually been out to the property. Like,
I have not inspected it.
Yeah, you know what you've been told by the property owner. Okay, that's my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Purvis. And I got to tell you that I also noticed the professional fees seem to be very, very high. And I've seen a lot of apartment buildings over my many years on the board, and I'm sure Mr. Merritt has too. And usually they're maybe at the hundreds, not thousands. So I also took some issue with it. But again, that's a question we'll have to put to Mr. Burrows, I think. The thing I have to ask you about, though, Ms. Adrianova, is that the model has 15 suites, and I see that the applicants also did the write-up on 16 suites, but on page number 11, they show 16 suites and rent for 16 suites. So are there 16 suites or are there 15 suites there?
I believe that it's 15 suites.
Okay, because they show 16 on page number 11, and I guess also on 13, I think. And rents for each of them.
There's no 13 suite.
Oh, there's no suite 13. Thank you, Mr. Burrows. You just answered my question for me.
Thank you.
Okay, that clears it up. Thank you. Okay, so I have no further questions. Mr. Burrows, you can present the first 2 pages of your evidence.
Okay, I'd like to start off. I understand the building was renovated in 2017. There's some reference to renovations in 2021. I'm not sure on that. Another thing is that I did adjust. So the rent goes up and down, as we can see. The owner says that there's chronic vacancy at this building. It's severe, and they have a hard time renting out suites. They say it's because it's just a downtown location, and they have lots of long-term vacancy. So we actually, use the actual rents, as Rocky said earlier. The income is the income for using what they reported, what the building has generated on average. I did, I was a little bit of rush on this one, so I had took a look at it again, and I was upping the net operating income to, I would revise it to $74,000, which like even with accepting the 5.05 cap rate would put the building at $1,465,000. The income I was using also included post-reference numbers, so would like to revise my income, which raises the value quite a bit.
Okay. So are you saying then that you are revising your NOI to 74,000, and you're going to keep the model cap rate of 5.05 to get a value of 1,465,000? That's what you're now asking for?
Yep.
Okay. And that's your evidence then?
Yep.
Oh, thank you. Ms. Idakonova, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Hey. Mr. Purvis, any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Merritt, any questions?
I have none. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have none. Thank you. I'm just making a note here. Sorry. Give me a second. Okay. Okay, that completes this matter then for now. We'll bring our decision eventually, and we'll go on to item number 3 now. And
We have to call Rocky back for this one.
Okay.
Sorry. It's-
Mr. Moroz, will you be presenting on this item as well?
Nope.
Okay. Mr. Chair, whenever you're ready.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, I'm ready. Please proceed, Mrs. Esser.
File number is 24-4376, roll number 1209251520. Address is 36 Navy Way. Owner is Gopher Enterprises Limited. The roll year is 2025 with the reference date being April 1st, 2023. The assessed value is 1,788,000. Classification is residential 2 and liability is taxable. This is an apartment. It has one building on site that is 3 stories. The actual year built and effective year built is 1926. We have 29 suites and 22 outdoor parking. Continuing to page 3, we can see that the suite mix consists of solely 29 one-bedrooms, and that the average monthly rent per unit is $675.88. The model derived assessment shows that the gross potential rent is $235,206. Vacancy rate 4.3, effective gross income $225,092. Expense rate 59.48, and that the net operating income is 91,207, which is fairly in line with the 2022 mailer of 94,112. Cap rate here is 5.10, and our estimated market value is 1,788,000. And the market value per suite is 61,655.17. And continuing to page 4, we have our rent comparables. So subject property being in the first column is an apartment, same as comparables. All have 3 stories, all have the one building on site, and the range for the comparables 1 through 4 year built is 1927 to 1931. We have a suite mix here consisting of both bachelors, 1 bedroom, and 2 bedroom in the mix. And the gross floor area per unit for the subject is 754 square feet, with the monthly rent being $675.88. And for our comparables, the monthly rent per unit ranges from $809 to $964. And the gross floor area per unit ranges from 714 square foot to 999 square foot. And we have heat in rent for comparables 1 and 3. Continuing to page 5. The capitalization rate evidence is shown here in the table. So the following is a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period. The purpose for showing these individual capitalization rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model derived capitalization rates. They are not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property. The net operating income has been developed through stabilizing owner reported income and expense information. Capitalization rates have been derived by dividing the property's net operating income by its sale price. So here in the table, we can see that there's a range from 3.46% on the low end and 5.74% on the high end. Continuing to page 6, we have our City of Winnipeg capitalization rates in the 20th and 80th percentile for multifamily being 4.75 and 5.45. Page 7 has the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. And page 8 shows location in an overview image as well as the map view image, so near downtown. And on page 9, we can see that the Google Street View from May 2019, the image below of the subject apartment. And page 10 and 11 show the 2022 mailer. And then we have the 2021 mailers continuing on pages 12 and 13. And this one here for 2021 has a NOI of 115,276. So it seems that the model derived assessment is well supported. Thank you. Open for questions.
Thank you. Should you feel any questions?
Yes, I do. Just going back to where I was on the last time I spoke, I was talking about age and cap rates. 1926, why wouldn't this cap rate be lower than 1939? Why is it, I mean, why wouldn't it be higher? Why is it lower?
Perhaps because that's not the only thing that comes into play, and I'm not sure, I guess, with how much weight it would have.
Well, what are the other factors? And is it the same answer? You don't know the weight given to them?
I wouldn't know the weight, and I wouldn't specifically know the exact factors as well. It's model derived.
Okay. And are you aware of any date breaks, like where it changes from one year to another?
No, I'm not aware.
In previous years, under questioning, many of the assessors had these answers as to when it changed. The rates would increase or decrease based on age. But you're saying you don't have that information?
I'm not aware.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure we're clarifying that you're not aware, you don't have it, or you're not allowed to discuss it.
I am not aware.
Okay. And on your page, page 6, did you review the cap rates indicated by the other professionals who actually sell buildings in Winnipeg?
We can see the Colliers and the CBRE as well as the Cushman and Wakefield as well within this table.
I see, but did you look at these rates? Did you determine if they were talking about the same thing that you were? Like an old building?
I'm not too sure. I haven't looked into the other rates as much, no.
And what impact was on cap rates did the model do to compensate for the higher interest rates?
I'm not too sure.
Okay. On the statement on first of all, the picture on page 8 shows part of some parking on this site. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And did you review the roll immediately south of it, which is owned by the same person?
I have not.
And did you make any attempt to break down the parking income from this unit to that parking lot located to the south?
So looking at our mailers, right? So starting on page 10 and more importantly, page 11, we have the residential apartment suite, I guess, income listed here, and we don't have information for the other category, which would be things such as parking.
Okay. But are you aware that in fact there are 3 units all in a row on Assiniboine, the parking lot in Navy, and 36 Navy that are operated as one economic unit?
I have not looked into that now.
Okay. Did you discuss this with your colleague who signed an agreement with us last week for an older appeal?
I would be news to me. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Not in my presentation.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Purvis, any questions?
Yeah, I just want to confirm you didn't do a site visit.
I have not.
And has there been one done by the city recently that's in the system? Like, do you have any?
I don't think I saw any notes regarding a recent inspection.
I know they usually split that amongst everybody, so I just want to make sure no one had visited the site.
No, I don't think anyone has visited the site.
Okay. And also just confirm this is all model driven.
Correct.
Okay, that's my questions.
Okay, I have no questions. Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, you can proceed with your evidence.
Thank you. I think I kind of alluded to it that some of our position was the result of some late information which we couldn't present as evidence under the 14 days, but essentially we resolved under the older appeal, and we had a discussion with the assessor, either take 90,000 at 6.75 or cut it to 73,000 at 6%, and that's how we came up with our deal. It is, this is a deal. This isn't an indication of market value, but it just gets you an idea of some idea of the property, and the principle at stake here is anticipation. A cap rate's based on your ability to earn money in the future. Will it go up? And the site has never gone up in the 16 years I've been involved with it. It does not have any chronic problems like Colony, but it is just older, and it's you can see that the expense load is very, very similar year to year. It's just a high expense ratio, and the income is not consistent. It is what it is, and so I didn't do this brief up, but it was stabilized at 91,000. I'm not going to disagree with it. The cap rate was 6.3, which is what it was on the last assessment cycle. It is not a 5.05. We didn't give you any more evidence, I can say in rebuttal to the assessor's evidence that there's not a single real estate practitioner who uses 1926 walk-up apartments as a cap rate example. They don't fall into our reporting of cap rates. They cap much higher because of the age-related deficiencies. And again, this is a very abbreviated approach, so I'm just going to give you that information verbally. And I would point out that the assessor presented a cap rate study. I don't know what's going to be in the next one I'm doing or not, but I now happen to be one of the authors of that study, so I am not telling you hearsay. We don't deal with old 1926 properties in there. So this is just a revenue stream that's not strong, durable. It's been durable for 80, no, how many years? Yeah, 80. I'm sorry, 1926, 98 years, 99 years old. I just can't think for why anyone would think a cap rate of 5% is good for a 99-year-old property. You are going to have to one day do a lot of work or demolish the end of its economic life. I personally wouldn't have capped it at 6.3. I think I was looking at 7.5 to 8%. Get your money out quicker while it's still living. That is my presentation.
Thank you. Mrs. Assessor, any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Purvis, any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Merritt, any questions?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I don't have any questions either, so thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can we have a little break?
Can I do a summation quickly? Very
Sure.
quick.
Sure, you can. You may make the summation, Mr. Merritt.
Okay.
Mr.
We presented a very, very short brief because this was in the discussion stage for municipal board, and it was resolved, and our numbers here are coincide with what was decided, and we think that the numbers are very good to rely on one way or another. So that explains the short form here. Sorry about that. That's all I want to say.
You know, if you're basing evidence, Mr. Neufeld, on an agreement made,
Nope.
I think that should have been part of your.
I know it's not on an agreement made. It's the concept of the evidence rule. We were scheduled for municipal board in March on this property, and it was our intent that we weren't planning on introducing any evidence that was at variance or would have impacted anything, but we did consider the value implications, and we came to a solution on that case, which this particular workup follows concisely.
Do you have a summation to make, Senator Kova?
No, thanks.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Merritt, you indicated you needed a break. How long would you like? How long do you need?
5 or 10, doesn't matter.
Okay, so let's come back then at 2:50.
What and is the next property?
Next property is 324 Arlington.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next property is item number 4, being 324 Arlington Street. And Ms. Darkanova, you can proceed when you're ready. And I can indicate on this one, and I indicated before, although the applicant's material has been filed late, we will allow the first 2 pages in because it assists us in making our determination. Thank you.
So file number is 24-3993. Roll number is 13030332100. Address is 324 Arlington Street. The owner is Joseph W. and Gail P. Jarima. The roll year is 2025 with the reference date of April 1st, 2023. The assessed value is $1,813,000. This is Res 2 taxable. This is an apartment with one building on site, 2 stories. The actual year built and effective year built is 1970. The number of suites is 18 and the outdoor parking is 12. Continuing to page 3, we can see that the suite breakdown consists of 3 bachelors and 15 one-bedrooms, totaling are 18 units. And the average monthly rent per unit is $865.85. From the model derived assessment, the gross potential rent is $187,024. Vacancy rate 3.6. Effective gross income 180,291. The expense rate is 49.23. And the net operating income is 91,534. We have a capitalization rate here of 5.05%. And the estimated market value is 1,813,000, and the market value per suite is $100,722.22. Going to page 4, we have the rent comparables. So for the subject in the first column, 1970 built, the suite mix, and then the gross floor area for the subject is 725 square feet, and the average monthly rent is $865.85. And for our comparables in columns 1 through 4, we have all of them are apartments, same as subject, and a mix between 2 and 3 stories. They all have one building on site. The effective year built here ranges from 1968 to 1974. There's a mix between wood and masonry for the construction class, and we can see that the units here are primarily 1 bedroom, and unit comparables 3 and 1 have 1 bedroom, and comparable 3 has the same suite mix as subject. Looking at the gross floor area per unit for the comparables, it ranges between 655 square feet to 776 square feet, and the average monthly rent per unit ranges from $744 to $1,066. Continuing to page 5, we have our capitalization rate evidence, in which the following is a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period. The purpose for showing these individual capitalization rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model derived capitalization rates. They are not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property. Net operating income has been developed through stabilizing owner reported income and expense information. Cap rates have been derived by dividing the property's net operating income by its sale price. So we can see the 3.46% as the low range and 5.74% as the high range within this table. Continuing to page 6, we have, again, more cap rate evidence. So for the multifamily city of Winnipeg, we have in our 20th percentile 4.75, and in the 80th percentile 5.45. Page 7 has a Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. Page 8 shows an aerial image of the subject in the purple rectangle, and we can see on the lower end that it's near Polo Park, as well as Wolseley and West End. We have an image from Google Street View, which is dated June 2024. Sign there says no vacancy. And on page 10 and 11, we have the mailer for the subject property. So page 10, we can see that the net operating income is $82,555, and the model was coming in at 91,534. Just to point out that within the expenses listed in the other categories, we have phone vehicle interest at $6,476 and depreciation at $5,593. So considering this, I think our model derived net operating income is well supported. And page 11 just shows the multifamily questionnaire of the mailer. That would conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rose, any questions?
Yeah, just the same question on the capitalization rate calculation. Is it accepted that possibly there's an error in the 727 Sergeant calculation?
I would not agree with that. I don't think there's an error.
Well, you can just do the simple math right now and see.
Is that a question, Mr. Rose? Because I'm looking at the table on page number 5.
Yeah,
Because
page
it
number
doesn't show
5.
I don't know how we can make a determination that there's an error. It doesn't show a theme.
Well, if the net income is not reported,
No, I'm
that's
saying
correct.
if net income's not reported, we can only look at the table for what it represents. But we certainly
Yeah,
make the determination that you're suggesting. You may be right, but we don't know because we don't know what the income is.
yeah. Just give me 1 second here, then I'll just calculate it. Well, I don't want to take up too much time on this. My other question is the income expenses is from 2023. That's reported here.
No, this is the 2022 year mailer, but the month's ending is December 31st, 2023. That's what it says.
So sorry, I don't understand. They just put that in there, 12/31/2023. But it's really from 2022.
Yes, this is the 2022 submission. They would have there is another separate 2023 submission. That's not included in the brief.
Okay, no questions. No more.
Thank you. Mr. Purvis, any questions?
I just want to clarify that. So I'm looking on page 10, and this is the worksheet that the applicant completed.
Correct.
So this is to the end of 2023.
That's what's stated there, but in
Okay.
our, just give me a moment.
But do we think that's an error?
We don't have a submission from them for the 2023 income year. So I've included the 2022. I'm not entirely sure if would be an error, but that is what we have for their submission for the 2022 year.
So the information on page 10 and 11, that's what's plugged into your worksheet for doing the valuation. Like that's like when you're doing the rent averages and stuff like that, you rely on.
Mr. Purvis, if you look at page number 11, you can see it's the top. It says it's due November 3rd or June 30th, 2023. So it obviously can't be 2023 year end because it was due in June of 2023. So it must be the 22 year.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, so probably just a typo. Because, yeah, I hadn't noticed until Mr. Rose asked the question. I was just like, wait a second. The dates don't line up, but these are the numbers that you were relying on, right?
Correct.
That's my question. I was just trying to get that kind of clarified, but yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
No other questions for me.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, do you have any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, so Ms. Darkanova, just going to the mailer, you indicated that it does report a lower NOI than the model, but it does include the indicated depreciation, which shouldn't be included. Anything else you see?
Depreciation definitely, in my opinion, is not an operating expense. The phone vehicle interest, I wouldn't be too sure about.
Yeah. Okay, I see that too. Okay, thank you very much. And anything else? Okay, so you're questioning approximately $1,100 then of expenses.
Sorry?
So you're questioning about approximately $100 of expenses then.
100. So the depreciation's 5,500, almost 6.
Yeah.
So what were you trying to?
Well, you're saying phone vehicle interest, which I'm not sure. It looks like it's what?
That's 6,400.
665. Yeah, so it's about $1,200 then you're questioning.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's my only question. And Mr. Rose, you can proceed.
I get clarification on that last point. Was the depreciation, what did it work out to?
So the depreciation from the mailer is
Yeah.
$5,593. And we wouldn't normally consider that an operating expense. And then I'm not too sure about the phone vehicle interest, but that is $6,476.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you can proceed, as I said, Mr. Morose, with your evidence now.
Just give me 1 second, please. Sorry, I just want to. Okay, the first 2 pages. So basically, what was done was the rents were stabilized. 2021, 22, given net operating income with the stabilized category of 70,950. Looking at the statement, I agree with the assessor that at least its depreciation at the very least should not be included. So if that adjustment is made, I get a net operating income of 88,000. And then if that capitalized at the 6% would give an indication of 1,469,000. So I'd be happy to make that change to the calculation on my page 1.
Okay. And that's your evidence?
Yep.
Mr. Assessor, any questions?
No questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Purvis, any questions? You're muted, Mr. Purvis.
Sorry, I thought I clicked it. The NOI that you adjusted to, what was that number?
Rounded 88,000.
88?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I just had missed it. So, and then you're continuing to keep your cap rate at 6%.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Merritt, any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't have any questions. Thank you very much. We can then go on then to item number 5, which is the property at 223 Nassau.
File number is 24-4374. Roll number is 12021815000. Address is 223 Nassau Street North. Owner is Gopher Enterprises Limited. Roll year is 2025. Reference date is April 1st, 2023. The assessed value is $1,012,000. Classification Res 2, liability taxable. This is an apartment. There is one building on site, which is 2 stories. The actual year built and effective year built are both 1959. The number of suites here is 11, and the outdoor parking count is 7. Continuing to page 3, we can see that the suite mix consists of 11 one-bedroom units, and the average monthly rent per unit is $873.59. The model generated assessment is showing the gross potential rent at $115,314 with a vacancy rate of 3.2. The effective gross income is $111,624 with an expense rate of 56.03%. And the net operating income here is $49,081. The cap rate here is 4.85%. And the estimated market value is $1,012,000. The market value per suite here is $92,000. Continuing to page 4 is the rent comparables. So we can see subject property in the first column, and the rent comparables 1 through 4 are all apartments. They have 2 stories, 1 building, and the effective year built here ranges from 1955 to 1964. The comparables predominantly have 1-bedroom units, and the square footage for the floor area ranges from 729 square feet to 876 square feet. And the average monthly rent per unit ranges between $688 to $867, with the heat and rent being included for all the comparables. Continuing to page 5, we have our capitalization rate evidence. The following here is a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period. The purpose for showing these individual cap rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model-derived cap rates. They are not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property. The NOI has been developed through stabilizing owner-reported income and expense information. Cap rates have been derived by dividing the property's net operating income by its sale price. And we can see the cap rates in the table below. ranging from 3.46% to 5.74%. On page 6, we have more cap rate information. So for the city of Winnipeg, multifamily, the 20th percentile is 4.75, and the 80th percentile is 5.45. On page 7, we have our Municipal Assessment Act excerpts, and on page 8, we have the overhead view for the subject property in purple, and a snapshot of the location. Continuing to page 9, we have our Google Street View image from May 2023. And we have our mailer on page 10 for 2022. Continuing on page 11, the repair and maintenance for this property is pretty high. I think it's coming in close to 3,300 per unit in the 2022 year. And below on page 12, we have our 2021 mailer, which seems to be better indicative of representing our model assessment, with the maintenance and repair being $20,000 and $204. So this NOI here of 50,178 better reflects the model assessment here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rose, any questions?
Yeah, just the same question regarding the capitalization rates. So for the first one, 727 Sargent Avenue, do you agree that to estimate the net operating income, you'd simply take the sale price times the capitalization rate?
So sale price times the capitalization rate?
Yeah. In a
Yeah,
nutshell,
correct.
yeah, so that gets you about $20,000 worth of net operating income. The building has 8 suites, so you're getting $2,500 a year per suite. So I would think that 3.46 capitalization rate is very low mathematically. Also, I'd ask that, did anybody check these sales on MLS? Or are you aware they exist on MLS with their net operating income?
I have not looked into the detailed specifics regarding the cap rate table, but as I've said before, an assessor within our department has looked into it, and I believe in the paragraph it says through stabilizing owner-reported income and expense information. So I think what would have happened, it would have been through looking at 3 years of reported income and expense, and it would have been the stabilization.
But not what was listed for sale and the net operating income.
I wouldn't know.
And you won't agree that there's possibly a mistake because they're asking $950,000 for the building. It's sold for $582,000, and the net income reported in the MLS listing would mathematically make more sense. That if you use the $950,000 and the net income reported in the MLS listing, you get a 3.46% cap rate. However, the building didn't sell for $950,000, sold for $582,000 on MLS and in your table here. So I think the 3.46 capitalization rate was based on the asking price, so and it's a mistake. Maybe someone could look into that going forward on using these tables. The same thing goes for the second one for 59 Sergeant. Again, it's error made and capitalization rate is significantly higher than these. And 203 Bertrand as well.
Are you asking questions now?
Yeah, I'm just saying that I guess nobody looked at these on MLS, so we'll just assume that they're going to look at them in the future, or where do we go with this?
I think that if you see that and you want to look into it, file rebuttal evidence next time you come before the board. If you can get the information that you indicate you think might be there.
Okay, that's it. Questions?
Thank you. Mr. Barrett, any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Purvis, any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. And I don't either. So thank you. So, Mr. Morose, you can proceed with your evidence.
And basically, the income was taken as reported, expenses as reported. They were stabilized. Given net operating income of $40,877, is an expense ratio of 61%, not too far off from the assessment expense ratio. And it was capitalized at 6%. Come up with the 681,000. That's all I would say about that.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Drakanova?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Barrett, any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Purvis, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, and I don't have any questions. Thank you. That takes us to item number 6, then, which is the property at 70 Dorchester. And Mrs. Assessor, when you're ready, you can proceed.
File number is 24-4127. Roll number is 12022527000. Address is 720 Dorchester Avenue. Owner is Atlas Acceptance Corporation Limited. Roll year is 2025 with a reference date of April 1st, 2023. The assessed value is $1,675,000. Classification is residential 2, and the liability is taxable. This is an apartment building with 1 building, 3 stories. The actual year built and effective year built is 1912. There are 20 suites and 12 outdoor parking stalls. Continuing to page 3, we have 14 1-bedrooms and 6 2-bedrooms within the mix for the 20 units, and the average monthly rent per unit is $938.16. Then below that, we have our model derived assessment. So here we have our NOI being 85,416, which is in line with, or more so in line with the mailer, which is 89,637, the 2022. And then we have our cap rate of 5.10%. The estimated market value is $1,675,000, and the market value per suite here is $83,750. Continuing to page 4, we have our rent comparables. So all our apartments, stories range between 2 and 3. Buildings range between 1 and 2. and the effective year ranges between 1908 and 1927. The suite mix here for the comparables are primarily one-bedroom units with some 2 bedrooms, and there's some, I guess, bachelors in comparables 3 and 4, with comparable 3 also having some 3 and 4 bedroom units in the mix up as well. The gross floor area per unit for the subject is 1,084 square feet, and the comparables range from 942 square feet to 1,185 square feet. The average monthly rent per unit is 932 for comparable 1, and that's just the lower end of the range, and on the higher end of the range is 1,064 dollars, and our subject property is sitting at $938.16. So within the range. And the heat and rent for the comparables is a yes. Looking at page 5, we have the capitalization rate evidence. So the following is a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period. The purpose for showing these individual capitalization rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model-derived capitalization rates. They are not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property. Net operating income has been developed through stabilizing owner-reported income and expense information. Capitalization rates have been derived by dividing the property's net operating income by its sale price. And we have 3.46 on the lower end and 5.74% on the higher end. On page 6, we have the City of Winnipeg cap rates, so some more evidence. Multifamily, 20th percentile, 4.75, 80th percentile, 5.45. And our subject is sitting within that. Page 7 has a Municipal Assessment Act excerpts, and page 8 has an overview image of the subject property, as well as the location is there too, so it's in a good location. Page 9 has the Google Street View for May 2023. And page 10 and 11 is the 2022 mailer. So we can see here that the net operating income is 89,637. And on page 11, we have the rent roll. Overall, it seems like the model is in line. That would conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rose, any questions?
Any questions relating to the cap rate? Other than that, no, I don't have any.
Okay, you asked them before, so we know what you asked them. We'll take into account from Kane. Mr. Mayor, any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Purvis, any questions?
Questions?
Okay, this one, Ms. Darkanova, is there any expenses shown in the mailer that you find unusual?
Everything seems to be related to an operating expense, so nothing that I would point out overly. I'll just see here, curious to see what the repair and maintenance is per suite. So So the repair and maintenance here is 2,140, so it's on the higher end. But overall, it's pretty similar to, I guess, the net operating income that we have in our model derived assessment, I would say.
I'm also looking at the 10,500 professional fees.
Yeah, that's, I guess, a higher one.
Okay, thank you. That's answered my question. Okay, Mr. Rose, you can proceed.
So basically, the income expenses were stabilized. Came up with a net operating income of $79,305. Expense ratio was 63.84. Second. And capitalized at 6.75% gives a $1,175,000 valuation.
That's your evidence?
Yeah.
Mr. Akinova, any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Purvis, any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Merritt, any questions?
None, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Rose, I'm just wondering where you got your 6.75 cap rate from.
It's if you look at page 2, or apologize for the state of these briefs, but on the second page of the PDF document, there's a rating system that was employed. You can see it there. It just rates the building. And
What are you referring to? What table?
this is on the second page of my brief. So there's the first page that gives a workup, then it's the Municipal Assessment Act.
Okay.
The second page.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, so you took that all into account, all those facts that there's 20 units and it was built in 1912, and your cap rate reports, and you're indicating there's high repair costs every year. So that's what you take into account when you arrive at that?
Yeah, because there's such a variation now in cap rates and sale prices, and so it's kind of going back to more of an investment analysis.
Okay, well, wouldn't location factor into that?
Pardon me?
Wouldn't location factor into that?
Yeah, location would factor into it. The chart is subjective. Here, location is no adjustment has been made for location.
Okay.
It's in the list, but Dorchester is.
Okay, well, we see how you arrived at what you've requested, so that's something we can decide on. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, we'll next go on then with item number 7, which is the property at 162 Lilac Street. And you can proceed when you're ready, Mr. Akinova.
The file number is 24-4130. Roll number is 12022933000. Address is 162 Lilac Street. Owner is Atlas Acceptance Corporation Limited. Roll year is 2025 with the reference date being April 1st, 2023. The assessed value is 1,777,000. Classification Res 2, liability T. This is an apartment with one building on site, and the building is 3 stories. The actual year built and effective year built. Oh, a difference. The actual year built is 1913 and the effective year built is 1945. So this one does have the effective age in place. The number of suites is 15 and the outdoor parking is 10. Continuing to page 3, we can see that there are 3 1-bedrooms and 12 2-bedrooms. And the average monthly rent per unit is 1,019.90. And we can see here that the gross potential rent is 183,582 with a vacancy rate of 3.2. And then the effective gross income is 177,707 with the expense rate of 49.49%. And the net operating income is 89,760. Cap rate here is 5.05%. And the estimated market value is 1,777,000, and the market value per suite is 118,466.67. Continuing to page 4, we have our rent comparables. So all our apartments, number of stories ranges between 3 and 4. There's 1 building on site. And the effective year built ranges from 1940 to 1945. Here we can see that comparable 1 has 11 3-bedroom units, 14 2-bedrooms, and 2 1-bedrooms, and then comparables 2 to 4 have the mixture between the 2-bedrooms and 1-bedrooms. So the gross floor area per unit for the subject is 1,277 square feet. And the comparables range from 793 square feet to 1,430 square feet. Average monthly rent per unit here ranges from 1,075 to $1,261, and for comparable 1 and 3, there's a no in the heat and rent included as well, just to keep in mind. So it seems like the subject is within the ballpark. Going to page 5, we have our capitalization rate evidence, which is the following is a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period. The purpose for showing these individual capitalization rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model direct capitalization rates. They are not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property. Net operating income has been developed through stabilizing owner-reported income and expense information. Capitalization rates have been derived by dividing the property's net operating income by its sale price. And we can see that in the table below, the range is from 3.46% to 5.74%. And page 6, we have more cap rate evidence. So for the city of Winnipeg, multifamily, the 20th percentile is 4.75 and the 80th percentile is 5.45. Page 7 has the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. Page 8 shows the subject from an overhead view, as well as a location view. So it's near the Crescentwood and McMillan neighborhoods. Page 9 shows a Google Street View image from May 2023. And on page 10, we have the 2022 mailer. And here we can see that the net operating income is 78,045. Which seems reasonable given that the repair and maintenance for, I guess, subjects seems to be higher as well. I'll just quickly see what that calculation would come to on a per suite basis of 38,763. So right now the repair and maintenance is $2,584. So on the higher end of what we would typically see. And for that reason, I don't think that the model generated NOI is out of line. And then we have the 2021 mailer as well, with an NOI that's fairly similar to 2022. But here the repair and maintenance is higher than that of 2022. Continuing on pages 16, this should be the 2020 mailer, yeah. And then on page 17, we can see that the NOI for 2020 is 79,605 as well. So it's all seems pretty consistent. It seems like the repair and maintenance is higher for this property. Just taking one last look. Yeah, that would conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Burrows, any questions?
Just some questions on the cap.
Okay. We've got the same answer, so we can go on. And that's it. So you can proceed with, oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Purvis, any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Merritt, any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't either, so thank you. Now I can tell you, Mr. Rhodes, you can give it through.
Okay, basically the income was taken from 2020, 21, 22. It was stabilized. It does bounce up and down quite a bit. The expenses, the repairs and maintenance were noted. They were high some years and average some other years. So basically, I think the average net income from the mailers was under 80,000. And with taking the averages, the net operating income was boosted to 84,875. Stabilized. These older buildings, they have higher operating costs. That income was capitalized at 6.75% and gave an indication of value of $1,257,000. And that's the end of my presentation.
Mr. Spencer, any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Purvis, any questions?
I don't have any questions, no.
And I don't have any questions. Thank you. Okay, so that takes us then to the last item on the agenda, number 8, which is the property located at 890 McMillan Avenue.
And this one, Rocky Newfield, will be.
Okay, we'll wait for Mr. Newfield to come back then.
And I would make the request. Last time I was cut out. I'd like to observe the presentation if possible.
Yeah, certainly.
I'm okay
Okay.
with that, as long
Yeah,
as
nobody, that's not an issue.
you close your mic and absolutely you can take it in. Mr. Neufeld is
I've sent him an email, but Yeah.
Okay. Let me know when he gets here and we can, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, we take a brief recess just until we have.
Yeah, we can do that, and I can indicate that I see that we only have 6 spots for people, and if Mr. Morose does want to sit in, we'll have to cut his video feed to us to make room for Mr. Neufeld.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we take a brief recess until Mr. Neufeld shows up. Thank you very much. So we're going to proceed on item number 890 McMillan and Ms. Dardanova. When you're ready, you can proceed.
File number is 24-4373. Roll number is 12023051000. Address is 890 McMillan Avenue. Owner is United Investments Limited. Roll year is 2025. Reference date is April 1st, 2023. The assessed value is $1,455,000. Classification is Res 2 liability taxable. This is an apartment with 1 building on site, which is 3 stories. The actual year built and effective year built here is 1913. We have 22 suites and 2 outdoor parking. Follow to page 3, we can see that there's a suite mix of 2 1-bedrooms and 22 bedrooms, and the average monthly rent per unit is $885.37. And looking at the model derived assessment, we can see here that the gross potential rent is $233,738 with a vacancy rate of 3.2 applied. And the effective gross income here is $226,258 with an expense rate of 53.71% applied. Net operating income is $104,735. And the cap rate here is 7.2%. The estimated market value is $1,455,000. The market value per suite is $66,136.36. Going to page 4, we have our rent comparables. So all our apartments, all our 3 stories, all have 1 building on site. The comparables, the effective year built ranges from 1912 to 1914. All are wood, steel, stud construction. And we see a fairly decent mix for more 2 bedrooms and less 1 bedrooms among the comparables. The gross floor area per unit for the subject is 1,266 square feet. And the comparables range from 1,012 square feet to 1,454 square feet. The average monthly rent per unit here ranges from $988 to $1,277. And comparables 2 and 4 do not have the heat and rent included. Going to page 5, we have our capitalization rate evidence. So the following is a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period. The purpose for showing these individual capitalization rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model-derived capitalization rates. They are not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property. Net operating income has been developed through stabilizing owner-reported income and expense information. Capitalization rates have been derived by dividing the property's net operating income by its sale price. Here we can see that there is a range from 3.46% to 5.74%. Page 6, we have more cap rate evidence. So for the city of Winnipeg's multifamily, the 20th percentile is 4.75 and the 80th percentile is 5.45. Page 7 has the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts, and page 8 shows the overhead view for the apartment in the purple rectangle, and we can see here the location on a map in which it's near Cordon, Crescentwood, Earl Grey neighborhoods. So on page 9, we have an image from Google Street View, May 2023. And going to our mailers, we can see on page 10, the multifamily info for the 2022. And on page 11, something to make note of would be the repair and maintenance being, let's see this on a per unit basis. So 60,354. So the repair and maintenance here is 2,743 per unit. And it seems that the heat in the year 22 is substantially different from that in the 2021 mailer, as well as the 2020 mailer. And if we go to page page 13. So the 2021 mailer, the heat here, instead of being 42,000, is at 26,000. And the repair and maintenance here is more reasonable. Or wait, what is, oh, never mind, that is not 17,000.
No.
So the repair and maintenance for the 2021 year is $171,608. I'm not sure why in the years 22 and 21, with 21 being substantially higher for the repair and maintenance. Not sure why that would be in play, as I didn't see any permits that would indicate any larger renovations or permits to begin with. And on page 14, we have the beginning of the 2020 mailer. And in my opinion, this one is more reflective of our model derived assessment today. So here we can see that the heat is somewhere in the 23,000 range, and that the repair and maintenance here is at 28,033, which is reasonable given that the unit count is 22. And the net operating income for the 2020 year is 108,973, which is in line with what we have for model NOI, which is 104,735. So it seems well supported in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, I do. And you made that statement again that 2020 was more reflective. I don't understand. You have 2 bad years, 1 good year. You get to cherry pick which year you think is more appropriate? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying is we don't have in the 2022 mailer and in the 2021 mailer anything that explicitly is listed as capital cost summary. And I wouldn't be able to draw any conclusions based off of these 2 mailer years as to why there's, I guess, such a high cost for repair and maintenance when I haven't been able to find information that would be able to explain it otherwise. So that's why I would put most of my weight on the 2020 mailer in this case.
I'm sorry, but did you investigate any of the years other than reading this?
These are the
Did you
information that we
investigate
have.
any of the details on any of the years?
I've examined the mailer information for the 3 years.
So one you accepted without proof, the other two you denied without proof. Is that correct?
I
That's
think what you
correct.
said was that the one was more reflective of the model. And I think
true.
that's all we're
Thank you.
taking it as.
I understand, Mr. Chairman, but I don't care for the inference. I'm wondering, why does the assessor not do what the rest of the industry does and look at 3-year average? That's a question.
So in this case, it would be because there are too many, I guess, unanswered questions I would have as to what's going on with the apartment building to begin with, because I don't see permit information available to me that would explain this. I have not come across anything online that would explain or help me draw any conclusions. And let me just find the brief again. So yeah, looking at the mailer information that we have, it does not seem to be that our model is unreasonable, as it is supported by the 2020 income and expense year. And looking at, I guess, the most recent year, the 22, I don't know why the repair and maintenance is coming in at something around the range of, let's see what that was again. 2,743. That seems typically more high than what we would see, and I think that wouldn't reflect what a market purchaser would consider, because it could be just a management style. And I wouldn't know for 2021 why the repair and maintenance here is 171,608.
So if I can just summarize what you're saying, is that you've made this on a bunch of assumptions without proof?
What I'm saying is that 2020 seems to be a better year for the expenses, as these are reasonable rates, especially for the maintenance and repair that we've seen across the board.
And just confirm that our reference date is April 1st, 2023. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Sorry, I left my phone too close. In regard to the capitalization rate, built in 1913, sorry, I'm just going to back this up a bit here. On page 3, was this all valuation done by the model?
Correct.
So 1913 construction, 7.2% cap rate. I know we can't refer to other evidence presented today necessarily, but it does seem to be incredibly inconsistent. Do you have any explanation why?
I wouldn't know why this cap rate is 7.2. It does seem it's one of the highest that I've seen.
Have you ever inspected the property?
I have not inspected the property.
Have you read the notes from assessors who have inspected the property?
I have read the notes, but I don't believe that we've had recent inspections of the property.
And what was in the notes? Anything in particular in regard to the physical condition?
We can have a look here to see. I don't recall at the moment.
Well, I won't refresh your memory. I'll point you to an inspection done by Rob Lucky in it, an assessor. Do you have his notes on the building condition?
Hang on a second. Would you know, I guess, the time frame if you,
Well, probably 2012, 2014.
I'm not seeing anything at the moment. Yeah, I don't see any notes from Rob Lucky.
Okay, and just confirm that, or do you know what the average increase or the typical increase was for on apartments in the city assessment system?
Off the top of my head, I do not.
Do you know what this one was increased by?
That information's not in my brief.
All right. What is in your brief, though, is the income of the site. Do you have any understanding as to why the income decreased from 21 to 22?
From 21 to 22.
Yes, and your pages, the ones I'm referring to, actually, you can look at all of them. I'm looking at page 15, page 13, and page 11.
So from 21 to 22. So looking at the 22 GPI, we have 292
I'm
as a
looking at
rough, and
line
then looking at the
105.
105
Yes,
on page 11. Or where are you at?
page line 105 on the
Oh,
three
line
pages
105.
on the three
Okay.
pages I quoted you.
I wouldn't know. Doesn't seem like there's any vacancy or listed below.
You have any understanding why revenue would be decreasing over this period?
I wouldn't know, but I can see that on the multifamily mailer page, it seems that the GPI
Well,
at
I don't care about
100%
that. I'm not
occupancy
asking
has
about, I'm not
increased.
asking about that. I'm asking about the actual income, line 105.
Line 105, yes.
I guess my question is the income decreased, yet the assessment income decreased, but the assessment increased. Does that run contrary to what you see in the market?
Not quite too sure I understand the line of questioning, but yep, it seems that the income has decreased there by some $4,000.
Now, you were starting to mention something about the gross potential income that is reported on those. And that, of course, has shown an increase from what, 279 to 285 to 292. Did you try to understand, do you know why that is not relating to the actual income?
I am aware that sometimes there are discounts applied, but typically we would be able to see that reflected in the vacancy and or bad debts. So I wouldn't be able to make any assumptions as to, I guess, these mailers, but what I can point out is that the repair and maintenance is higher in both the 22 and the 21 mailers, and that the heat and vent AC seems to be much higher than we've seen in 21 at least in the
On
year 22. So I'm not sure if there would have been any permits or anything that would have required the apartment to create some vacancy in a sense. I wouldn't know. I don't have that information.
on page 9, this is Google Street View. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Did you happen to do a drive-by at all? I'm just wondering if you looked at the building.
No, I haven't inspected or done an exterior inspection.
Does anything look unusual on that page?
No,
Okay. I'll just I'm just gonna re-ask a question I asked earlier, page 5, just to get it on the record. On your capitalization rate evidence, just confirm, does that what I asked you earlier about whether someone checked on the school tax credit, the difference in financing, or the potential for income increase between the date of the last statement and the reference date. I'm assuming would those answers be the same? Nothing's changed? I can re-ask.
answer being I wouldn't know the specifics.
Okay, that's all I was wondering. Thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Merritt, any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Purvis, any questions?
I am a little curious about this higher cap rate. When I look at the city's numbers, so I'm just going to page 6. The city's range for the percentile is 4.75 to 5.45. And even the Collier's range is 5 to 6. 7.2 does, like, did you investigate that number at all? Like, this is what came out of the.
It's the model derived rate. I wouldn't know why, but it does obviously stick out like a sore thumb.
Because it's significantly higher than even the city's high range. Like, this would.
I would agree, yeah.
Like, if we're using percentiles, this would be like 95th percentile kind of thing, and that kind of a range. And again, there's been no recent inspection by the city.
We have not inspected it recently that I'm aware of.
And you said there were no permits taken out
Not that I've seen.
recently? Okay. Okay, if you don't have any further details about that 7.2%, I don't have any further questions.
Okay, and I don't either, so thank you. And we'll then, Mr. Neufeld, you can present your evidence.
Thank you. Start with what the heck is going on here? Everything's page 1. Okay, the second page 1.
Yeah.
Page 1 and page 1. Okay, the picture. This is the same picture that the assessor has in her document. And what I was asking about, if anyone could just see it real clearly, that the half of the building on the left side is significantly lower than that on the right. That's not an optical problem with the camera. That's reality. It's 1 foot lower. And you can see the slope on the left side. It's been sinking for years. And so the mention with when we actually had an assessor come out, Mr. Lucky came out, and he noted it at the time, and we were able to resolve that hearing really quickly because the foundation is gone. This is, by the way, this is our famous silt neighborhood. Everybody knows that that this area has got extensive silt in it. The building dated from 1913, and I'm going to spend a bit more time on this building with the background. This is owned by Smith Agency. They were founded in 1912. This was one of their first projects. I had the fortune of being at their 100th anniversary a few years ago, and they actually dredged the foundations with horses back then. I guess got to blame the horses. I don't know. They just didn't go deep enough. I don't know. But this is not curable. right? You can't fix this. The ground is not appropriate. Now, what they have done is on this eastern section is they've shimmed the floors a few times, but there's now a 1 foot drop from the other building. So it's pretty hard to put a shim in. It looks like one of those awkward, weird houses that you go into in an amusement park. And it leads to issues. Now the basement suite on the east side has become uninhabitable, and that dated back a lot longer than this. I think they first closed it up in 2014. That it was closed, and if you look on page 1, the real first page 1, the overhead view, there is no parking. There are 3 single-family houses immediately west. The owner owns those 3 houses. He has an application for demolition and hopefully to rebuild 890 in a different configuration. Affordable Housing Initiative is blocking it. Now, affordable housing, it's a great concept. Keep affordable housing. And if you demolish and rebuild, you're going to have higher rents. And they really didn't want to see that. They want to keep the older stock of more rentable homes. And that's what's holding this project up. So you're wondering, why don't they fix it? They want to fix it, but they can't get the appropriate permission from the planning authorities to fix it. And it's not likely that they're going to replace it with something that doesn't reflect the highest and best use in the neighborhood. And this no longer reflects it. So the earnings on it have been up and down, and you saw the assessor's data. 1 year NOI 73,000, next year minus 21, prior year 109. 3-year average 53,600 per year. And again, we have statements going back from 2008, and that shows the same issues. Where what they have to end up doing is a little bit more extensive repair and trying to mitigate the shifting. And it's not something where you can call the mud guys up and have them pump some mud underneath it. This is 3 stories of stone. It won't lift. So this is a full-blown repair problem. And at this point, they're fairly convinced that any sort of lifting will probably just destroy the home, the apartment anyway, because of the type of construction. So this is a waiting attitude, and it is still earning a return. It's just extremely diminished. We're not saying it doesn't have value. There's an old joke someone once told me when I saw him driving a 65 Chevy a few years ago. He says, it smokes, but it's old enough. And it's like this building. It's dropping, but it's old enough, and it'll still make money and serve its purpose. But it's not hitting its highest and best use, and it's being blocked. On page 5 are the standards for parking per dwelling unit. Line 3 is 1.5 parking spots per dwelling unit. That is the code. That's the building bylaw. So of course it doesn't meet it. So it is a legal non-conforming use. That would be the other potential block to redevelopment, is they would have to meet modern parking, which means either underground or garage levels. And of course, given you're on a river of silt, significant foundation costs, just impediments to development. I don't want to make it sound like it's doom and gloom. It's just, like I said, it smokes, but it's old enough. It's just what it is. And one has to assess it as it is. The concept of a capitalization rate is actually very, very simple. A capitalization rate predicts the remaining economic life of a property and how much longer it can contribute and still earn income. The rest of the nonsense you can throw out the window. It's the interest rate, and it's the remaining economic life. And because this has a perceived short remaining economic life, you would always be, as an investor, in a rush to get your money paid back. Now, if demolition happens at some point, and you rebuild, you still have the security of the land as value, which is why you wouldn't have like a 20% cap rate, which is why we went to a 10% cap rate, because you still have the land that is available. And on a real true cap rate analysis, you would take your length and strength of your revenue stream and a residual at the end. So what's happened, and I hope I'm not getting too technical and boring for you, but a typical cap rate is income for 35 years with the residual at the end being the land. In this case, if you use probably a 10-year life for your safe estimate for your cap, your residual is going to be higher because it hasn't been discounted for time. That's why we only went to 10%. In our business, I guess we talk about the calculations of cap rates and residuals all the time, and we do not always make it very simple so the people can understand it. But again, all you really have to remember are interest rates and remaining economic life in a cap rate, and how much money is an investor going to pay for this. And you're going to buy it, and you're going to have to make arrangements to understand that you're going to have less than 10 years. That's your risk period. That's why the cap rate is higher. It is an anomaly. There are lots of older buildings, and I brought forward the other one today, 36 Navy. It shows no such problem. So you're safer to cap it higher because it'll have a longer a life of earning income, whereas the first one I spoke of, 239 Colony, has a shorter lifespan because of its problems. Incidentally, it blew a leak last week. I just checked in the pipes on 239 Colony. I snuck that one in, but I I say it for credibility. Now, when you talk about cap rates and what people think a cap rate's supposed to do and what's wrong with the city, I will start off with page 24. Now, when interest rates started to rise beginning in April 2021, and they went up phenomenally, it really stalled out the investment market because the cap rate has always been derived from the cost of interest, because they're married. They are one does not exist without the other. A cap rate was invented so the banker could figure out if you could cover your mortgage, period. Now, what we've showing here is the spreads on cap rates versus interest rates. And you can see that over time, it compressed. You look at the mortgage rate at the lower and a cap rate at the top. And these aren't about the subject. This is Canada. This is a national study. So as the interest rates rose around 21, as you can see, they went up, and the cap rate and the interest rate compressed. It still drove it higher, but people were going to take the risk that it was going to come back, which is why a cap rate, when the interest rates went up, didn't go up like it should have. It didn't go up 3 points. It went up. Our estimate was about 0.6 to 0.75 a percentage point, because a cap rate's something done in the long run. I'm giving you the shortened version of this because we do want to get out of here today. The Collier's cap rate, and I'm showing you first of all the one on page 28. This is from Q4 2022. The one that the assessor is using is an error. And you can see that when you look at that our cap rates here in multifamily on page 28, that our rates on the low rise are 5.5 to 6.5. Now, the subject is not included in that. Our definitions on those rates are on our page 31, and a multifamily top right-hand corner, and they do not deal with old buildings with losing their foundation or having a bad boiler system or even being 100 years old. we don't go that old on it, because it's got to have remaining economic life that makes it of interest to the marketplace. A purchaser of an investment property wants to see 35 years of remaining economic life. Understanding he might have to spend some money in the interim on keeping it going, but the three we've talked today just don't have that. Now, I mentioned that there was an error in our rates. Page 32 kind of explains it. This is from our vice president of evaluation. I was actually the person who caught the error, pointed it out, they corrected it, and then they put me in charge of the cap rate. So if you're going to ask us a question about Collier's cap rates, now you're looking at the author. Now I'm not bragging. Nobody wants this job. It's extra work, but I want to be right. I don't want to make a sales blurb here. This isn't an advertising scheme. This is to give people real, honest, good advice on what constitutes investments. We don't want our investments to go bad and advise people wrongly. Page 33 is what I mentioned about the interest rate. This is the Bank of Canada rate, and you can see in 21, 0.05%, going up to 4.75 by our reference period. Tremendous impact on the cap rate. It froze the market, really. We do have a few sales that I want to show you, and they are on page 36. These are at the bottom of 36. They're 3-story walk-ups. They're all newer. They're all better, and you can see the ages on them. Much better remaining economic life. Incidentally, they were purchased by the same company that owns the building today. And I shouldn't call them a company. It's a family. It's Smith Agency. This is what they purchased. Now, when I was talking earlier and asking questions about how do you adjust your income, three things that are at stake are the school tax credit and preferential financing, and the difference between the date of the statements and the date of the sale. And I'm going to come full circle. It won't take too much longer. The school tax credit was changed, I believe it was around 2020. It used to be direct to tenants, direct to the homeowners. Then the government of the time changed it. They increased the amount. It went directly to the property owner. So in the case of apartments, they went from getting no impact whatsoever from the school tax credit to a 50% cut on their school taxes, which essentially worked out to about half of 55%, because that's what the school tax is. So 27.5% rebate. These were sent out in checks for the first 2 years of the program. In post-reference, in 2023, they changed that to a direct application to your tax bill. So take, for example, 441 Edison. If this was assessed at, say, 7 million, as an example, the taxes on that would be about $84,000. Their rebate would be $23,000. Goes right to the bottom line. Yeah, it was supposed to go to make housing more affordable, but of course it didn't. It went to the bottom line. So when that property was sold, it has to be adjusted upwards for $23,000 additional NOI, which never showed up in the statements. And if you're an astute appraiser, you're supposed to look for it and find it. We know the modelers don't. It's missing. That's why their rates are, one reason their rates are so low. The other is preferential financing. This unit sold with a 1.75% mortgage at a time when the going rate was about 4.75% for multifamily. You never hear anybody adjusting for financing because it hasn't been done for the longest time. But we had this spike. You have to adjust. My standards as an appraiser, I have to adjust. Any assessor who belongs to AAOM and follows the IAAO must adjust, because preferential financing under the definition of market value is not a market value sale if you have preferential financing. And that's that. And the way I adjust is I look at the preferential financing for the 5-year term on a life of 20 years. So it's in place for 5 years, but I amortize it over 20, and then adjust that to the expense side. And then it also changes the NOI and drops it in comparison to the market. And the last thing is the date of the sale versus the date of the last statement. And I was asking the assessor questions about the income on this place and the income that they've registered as a gross potential. The gross potential is what is registered at residential tenancies branch. It is not, it is what they can change it to immediately, but it's not what they're asking, because they still have to live with the market. And remember, they got this broken down place with a floor that's got a slope like this. They're not getting those numbers. They're getting the numbers. They're full. They're getting what, except for the empty space I mentioned, but they're getting the rent that they're declaring, which is not that good, and it lags considerably behind what they registered at residential tenancies. That is because you can ask for an above guideline increase if you put money into your place. They've obviously put a great deal of money in. They've got their increases registered. They can't capitalize because the market won't allow it. So forget about that. It doesn't increase their value. But the apartments that sell, you have to know if they have an above guideline increase. So if your statement is 6 months old before your sale, in that 6-month interim period, all of the rents will have been converted. They could be up 6%, 7%, 11%. Those are typically what you're going to see above guideline. And the appraiser at date of sale must adjust for that. The city model does not. Those are the 3 reasons why their rates are misleading, and they're not done right. What we do, I'm showing you 2 examples here. These are better properties, 5.89 and 6.04. That's really what you would expect a 3-story walk-up to go for, and the reference date. That is your, I mentioned earlier, I'm coming full circle again, the cap rate that was in the mid 5s is pushed up to the 6s because of the interest rate change. That's the 3-story walk-up standard number. And if you're inferior to that, it's an inferior rate. And I am really glad you were patient through all of my speech. But it explains a little bit more about what you've heard today on all of our properties, or where we're going. You've had 2 appraisers tell you this. We're in it as a living. We're not sitting in our desk. We go out, we inspect the properties, we look at them, we talk to the people lending money, the vendors, the purchasers, and we understand how decisions are made. No, I'm not being disrespectful to the assessor here, but we don't sit and look at pieces of paper without verification, and that's why we differ. That is my presentation. I know I have a very, very, very short summation.
Mrs. Tesser, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Mayor, any questions?
I have just a couple. Mr. Newfield, you opened up a can of worms here in regards to, mortgage financing, et cetera, that's got a bearing on in regards to the value. So I'm not sure exactly how you can explain that and adopt that theory into the value. So I just want to hear a comment in that respect.
Well, okay. You're asking that question because you and I have been around for about the same amount of time, and we have never run into the situation, because in most cases, interest rates have been stable or going down. But I have my little textbook here, and under adjusting for it, I'll give you, I'd like to have the exact adjustments. Chapter 13, there's an order of adjustments. And by the way, this is the same thing that the IAAO publishes. I'm going to have to go up. Here we go. The first adjustment goes for real property rights. I'm quoting from Appraisal of Real Estate, third Canadian edition, page 1312. First adjustment for property rights. So, fee simple versus strata, whatever. Second, financing. That's the one we always skip because we haven't had to use it for 20 years. Next is conditions of sale. What's included, what's not included. Next, expenditures made after purchase, repairs, etc. Then market conditions, which is basically time. So it is the second highest ranked adjustment that is never done. Now, there's actually a formula, and I've asked all our people to put it in so you can see what the IAAO does. I like to look at it in the long term because most investors play the long term. So instead of looking for, in this case, you have a 4% interest rate, you should be having a 7-8% cap. I'm saying that everybody knows it's not going to last that long. Interest rates have already dropped, but it's when did you get your mortgage? How long is that going to be in effect? You took out a mortgage April 1st, 2023, and you're going to be 5% mortgage. Versus the guy who sold it even a year prior, who's got a locked-in 1.75 for another 4 years, right? And that's what it did, though, is it's not, as I said, I'm not preaching the doom and gloom and saying it should be 3-4 points higher, but in multifamily, our people across the country think between 0.6 and 0.75% higher caps due to the interest rates on multifamily on a good product. And I could probably talk about it for hours. Do you want me to? I got lots of material, and I'm well rested because I've only had 3 hearings.
So, Mr. Newfield, just one final question. How did you come up with the 10% cap rate?
Well, that was just looking at a remaining economic life. Now, I didn't exactly work up this number. I think we had a discussion on it amongst 3 of us here, and we looked at and then we walked over to our multifamily guys and said, what sort of investment window? And we were talking 10 to 15 years. And we're talking about a land residual of, so we've got 12,000 square feet of living space. You probably have a land residual of 300,000. So if you had a value of could you recover at 10% and cover your demo costs and with your land residual and still make money? I don't have the math in front of me on it, but I could work it out. It's all about the remaining economic life being 10 to 15 years rather than a typical apartment. Any investment, it's got to be 35 years. In simplified terms, when the city assessor says it's older to have a high cap rate, they're partially right. But it's not about how old you are. It's about how much longer you have to live.
Okay. I think that answers all my questions. Thank you, Mr. Newfield. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Purvis, any questions?
Just a couple. So maybe a little bit more curiosity than anything. Looking at the year it was built, 1913, and your submission has been that the longer term plan for Smith Agencies with this property is to demolish some neighboring houses and probably this building as well and build something new if their dreams could come true. Are there any historic building restrictions on this property or?
Ooh, you're asking a scary question. Nobody likes to ask that question. that might be another, actually, I've never checked, but I think it's easy to look up.
Well, the city has that new zoning restriction in parts of Crescentwood. Is this in that one, that sort of neighborhood use plan that they came up with?
Oh, there's a Cordon Street overlay. I think that only goes to the back lane.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a registry and it's changed a bit, but nominated list. Well, oh, okay. Well, they've changed their layout on it, but I could probably find out in about Main Street. I actually I don't think they've gone and done a lot of the apartment blocks. Most of the ones they've designated have been commercial properties. So Mick, oh, there's one that burnt down. I got 758 McMillan. No, it's not on the list.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious.
But should a demo permit come forward, it would get shoved past historical on something like this. That's automatic now on this, because they would list the age of the building, and it goes right to historical society, the conservation people, and they can or can't put a block on it. Not something we want to know right now, but yeah.
Yeah, they're, I'm sure, not applying for the designation for it.
No.
Okay, I was just curious because it sort of sounds like the value you're arguing for on the building is approaching closer and closer. It seems like just the land value.
Yeah, I think it's a couple years of income before demolition occurs is what we would look at this on a reasonable basis. And we've done a lot of these properties that are near the end of their economic life. And I'm saying economic, physically, it can keep going for a long time, but at some point, it will. Ground keeps sinking, right?
Okay, that's my only questions.
Okay, so this has been an ongoing problem, Mr. Neufeld. This sinking that is on Selt.
Yes.
So this is something that has just occurred in the last year. It's been
no. First involvement with this is 1908, and I went out, took pictures. I told you I met Mr. Lucky there. It was either 1910 or 2010 or 2012. We went out and looked at the building.
Okay, so it's derived since you took a look at it even then, and probably knew about the problem before then. Another 12 years of operating.
Yeah, I think when we looked at the timeline was to look at the amount of settling that has occurred in the past while. Most of it occurred before I came on the scene, and so what's happened after that hasn't been as much. That's going down, but it's still continuing to go down, because I remember in 2015, 2016, that they spent another did another shimming on the interior floors. And I think since then they maybe had I wouldn't say a lot. I'm going to say it was somewhere around, I think, 1 inch to 2 inches since then. So on that basis, you can sort of project a life, but with sinking, it could stop any day now. But what happens though, if you lose a lower suite, and then if you lose the next one, and then they're all gone, then there's no fixing.
Okay. Is there any reason why you didn't file any engineering reports from geotechnical engineers showing what the problem is and that it can't be rectified or anything like that?
Well, it's so apparent from looking at it that
Yeah, but I know we haven't looked at it. We're just,
yeah,
hearing.
yeah, and there's a perfect world where we always have the experts doing reports, and then there's the people who've been running things for 100 years, and they know what's going on, and they're saying, it's at the end of its life. Why do I have to hire an engineer? I can see it. I got another plan, and that you're not going to stop it from sinking.
No, I'm not saying
The
that.
whole family grew up in the neighborhood, right? So they've been here.
Mr. Neufeld, I don't want to talk over you, but what I'm asking you is, like, it would be nice to be provided evidence showing that there is a problem other than, the way it's been done. I'm not saying that I doubt your word for a minute, but you're an appraiser, not an engineer. So, okay.
And that's true. And I would like to point out on that specific point that as an appraiser, I'm not allowed to make certain comments unless I am qualified. I'm qualified to say it's crooked.
Okay. Last question, and that is that you've got the 2023 assessment at 1,258,000.
That is under appeal at the municipal board.
Okay. So that's under appeal. You haven't got word on that yet. So again, I suppose you're asking there for something close to what you're suggesting on this one.
Well, I think the previous year was about, prior to that was around 800,000, and the performance hasn't improved since then. It's only gone down. So I think we're dealing with declining financial health.
Okay, that's completes my questions then. Thank you very much. You said you had a summation to make, so
we'll just wait if the assessor has one.
Well, we'll see. Do you have a?
I can summarize. So I guess in our opinion, the 2020 mailer would better reflect the NOI that the model has projected. And I guess while Mr. Neufeld was presenting, I did go through the notes that we have, and I did see one from 2004 that made mention of the chronic issue, and I guess that's where our cap rate of scrolling up through my brief, 1 second, of 7.2% seems to be reflected as well, just due to the poor condition. I wasn't aware that it was, I guess, experiencing such issues before.
Okay. Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, thank you. Well, problems like this don't get better on their own, and it's certainly not repairable. The way that the assessment was done up, and I certainly don't mean to anything personally, but it sounded to me like there's a lot of assumptions about what it could be and what it couldn't be, but of what it isn't. There is a burden of proof in our law, and an answer like, I don't know why, or maybe the old one is more reflective, really fail the burden of proof. The burden of proof is proof. It's a crooked building. That's all the proof I need. It's got a short life to it. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neufeld, and you will render our decisions in due course, but I can indicate that all items that were on the docket today have now been heard, and we're going to close this hearing. Thank you very much for your attendance, your briefs, and the information you gave us, which I thought was interesting and helpful. So thank you for that.